Welcome to the Capital City Soccer Show, your independent source for everything Austin FC. I know you all are used to hearing me start the show in a certain way, but we decided to change it up a little bit today as a tribute to Daryl Grove of the Total Soccer Show. Daryl was diagnosed with cancer last year and was doing fairly well for a while. And then on Saturday, they found out that there's nothing else the doctors can do for him. So we wanted to just give a little shout out to Daryl and pay a little bit of tribute to him. So I started listening to the Total Soccer Show almost a decade ago, which is crazy to think about. And I've never met Daryl or Taylor, the other hosts, but I feel like they're friends of mine. And these are people who have shaped the way that I watch the game of soccer and think about the game of soccer with their meticulously prepared shows and their fun banter on the show. More importantly, Daryl is just a really good person. And so if you want to know how special of a person he is, just take a look at Twitter and you'll see how many people like me who have never met him are expressing what he means to them. So we just wanted to give a quick shout out to Daryl. Daryl, we love you, man. I am Landon Cottam. I made it to my name.
You got so close, man. Yeah.
I'm Landon Cottam. I'm joined, as always, by Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and I think we'll raise a glass to Daryl here.
Here, here. Jeremiah, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, Landon, I'm drinking Tito's tonight because that's pretty much what I drink a lot of the times we record.
Yeah, I don't know if all of our listeners will know that, but Jeremiah is essentially a brand ambassador for Tito's vodka.
Yeah, we've been known for a long time. So I knew Tito when he was like making bathtub vodka for his like friends and family and foisting it off on them. And he at some point he met people who like knew how to actually make vodka, and that was a good move in his life because like the original stuff was not that great.
His last name actually Beverage?
His name is Bert Tito Beverage. Yes, that's his actual name.
A lot of people think, so listeners, you'll be familiar with Tito the dog, who makes regular appearances on the show. He is not named after Tito's vodka. A lot of people are surprised to hear. He's actually named after the communist leader of Yugoslavia in the 70s and 80s. And so our dog, I don't share all of his political views, but my dog is a member of the Communist Party, and that's his choice. And so we let him kind of live his own life, and that's fine.
He's got the little hat, little commissar hat. It's great.
Yeah. So I asked you what you're drinking, hoping you're drinking a beer, but because I wanted to talk a little bit about the wonderful seasonal beers that are available to us in Austin, Texas. So, Jeremiah, what is your favorite seasonal beer from Austin? I say because we're like coming on the winter season, which was when a lot of the good ones come, but it can be any time of the year.
Yeah, and those are my favorite. Like winter beers are my favorite beers, and like I love that just sort of big flavor that they all have. And you know, originally it was this is years ago when Sierra Nevada's Bigfoot barley wine came out. That was like my very favorite, like the first seasonal beer I got super excited about. But like I'm just such an Austin Beer Works honk for everything now too. That Sputnik I think is probably their winter beer is probably my favorite seasonal beer. How about you?
Yeah, I knew we were going to have the same answer on this question, but it's Sputnik from Austin Beer Works. And honestly, like the answer, regardless of what time of year it is, my answer, like what's your favorite beer in your fridge right now? The answer is almost always like whatever Austin Beer Works seasonal beer is available at the time. So I think, so we just kind of passed and are at the tail end of like Oktoberfest season right now. Austin Beer Works does have a good Oktoberfest, but I think Live Oak's Oktoberfest, which is called Oktoberfest, is my favorite Austin one. And then, like you said, Sputnik is great, but I'll say this at the risk of bodily harm from our listeners, that one of my favorite winter seasonals is actually a Dallas beer from Community Beer called their kind of flagship stout is called Legion, and so they do a barrel aged Legion every winter, and it's really, really good. And you can find it at like the good bottle shops in Austin. So check that one out. But yeah, the number one it's got to be Sputnik.
So one I'll add to that I've liked for a long time, and it's been mostly on draft, is the Real Ale Shade Grown Coffee Porter. Their coffee porter on draft, I love. I love it on draft. And in the bottle, it's okay. And I don't know if it's just...
Do they do it on Nitro on draft, or is it just...
I've had it on Nitro on draft, too. But yeah, just the regular one I love.
I tend to not like Nitro beers on draft, and so I would prefer it to just be regularly carbonated. But I'll have to check that one out. Let's jump into some Austin FC news. How about it?
Let's do it. Let's talk about the Academy.
Yeah, so another 2 weeks, I guess, since the last time we've talked about them, another 2 weeks of strong results. The U15s, it looks like we're the only team that played this most recent weekend, and they beat RGV Toros 2-0. So again, they're, like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, Academy's looking really strong against some really good competition. On October 31st, I've heard that they're going to be playing FC Dallas. I'm not sure if that's in Austin or in Dallas, because it's kind of difficult to find a schedule on these things. So, but we talked about this on a couple of shows ago, that FC Dallas is like the Academy team, right? Like one of, if not the best, then at any given time, they're in the top handful, and probably over the arc of time, probably the best academy in the country. And so this is going to be a really interesting result to look out for. If it's in Austin, I'm going to try to go watch it in person. And if not, I'll just be looking out for that result. But that'll be an interesting result to watch out for.
It'll be a real test of their progress too. Do you know where they're playing now? They were playing... They can't play at St. Stephen's?
Venue out south. So they played a couple of games in Leander, and then most recently it's some fields way down south. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but yeah.
Oh, it's called like Soccer something. It's a new project, right? That's like a dedicated like set of soccer fields. It's kind of a private thing. I don't remember the name of it though.
I think that's right. I'm not sure. We'll find it and put it in the show notes though, because that is publicly available. One thing I wanted to mention in broader MLS news is Brendan Aronson was recently sold to RB Salzburg for $6 million. And I think there's some incentives there for it to go up to $9 million. And so you have to imagine that Austin FC's watching that transfer, and probably their mouth is watering a little bit. Like, yeah, we're doing the right thing now, building up this strong academy system. So they can sell players like that and then use that money to strengthen their team. So hopefully this is a kind of a path that Austin FC follows, is the Philadelphia Union route. Next set of Austin FC players we're going to talk about is our guys, Rodney and Cecilio. They played their first league match together for Guarani against Sol de America. I didn't watch this one. It looked like kind of an ugly game. I think there was a red card in the 16th minute, and then they both got yellows and were subbed off early. So a red card in the 16th minute, you can't judge them too much on that one. But they do have another game coming up soon. It'll be the day after this episode is released. They're going to travel to Bolivia to play Bolivar on October 21st. And that's the last game of the group stage of Copa Libertadores. They've already qualified for the knockout round, so really, if they win this one, there's a chance they could go top of the group. But really, the last sets of results is just going to decide who they play in the knockout round.
I'm really hoping if we get to the knockout round, there'll be the chance for some outdoor watch parties or something, just to get people together to watch some soccer. Again, the club did that once for the MLS is Back tournament, right?
MLS is Back playoffs, yeah.
But yeah, whether they do it or one of the supporters groups does it, I think it would hopefully be a good chance to see the guys and see the players and have some people and, socially distance, just to have a good time watching soccer, because we haven't gotten to do that very much.
Yeah, and not only watching soccer, but cheering for Austin FC players, which is not a thing that we've gotten to do yet. So that would be a really cool idea. Hopefully we'll see something pop up. So the MLS transfer window closes on October 29th. So there's been questions about how this transfer window is going to work in such a strange year as 2020. So do we expect to see other Austin FC signings before this transfer window closes?
Well, I mean, it's fun to talk about, but they'd have to be like from MLS, right? Because almost all the other international windows are closed. So, I mean, there's not a lot of opportunity for coming and going. So, I guess not. I guess it only makes sense to wait till the end of the season at this point. Because also, if you sign somebody, you have to find a place for them to play or to hang out or to do something between now and the start of next season. So I haven't. And I know people want more players. Like as soon as we get the second player, people were already looking for the third player. But I don't see a lot of opportunity, I don't think, to sign anybody else until the season's over. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's going to be a decent break. I mean, even if the season started on time, they would have a few months to buy players. I think the season will be started at least a little bit delayed in 2021. So I think there's going to be a decent little chunk of time for them to be buying players. And like you said, the most countries' transfer windows are closed right now, and so they're kind of limiting themselves to where they can choose from. Also, the once the MLS season is over with, that's where a good chunk of their roster is going to come from, just because that's how you have to do it in MLS. So you can't fill a roster of international players. It's A, against the rules, and B, very difficult to do with the money available in the salary cap. So I think once the MLS season is over, you'll see a lot of moves happening pretty quickly within MLS, and the people they can get from within MLS, they'll know which kind of gaps they need to fill with these international spots. And so I think in December, the turn of the new year, and then like whenever Europe has their like kind of the traditional winter transfer window, I think that's when we're gonna start seeing a lot of movement.
Yeah, and there's one player that we've heard about at the end of the year, and I don't know if this is real speculation or just random Los Verdes Slack speculation, but you want to talk Gignac, who I believe you've also discussed a little bit on Twitter, maybe, or online with Mike Torres and some other folks.
I think it was a long time ago. I think it was Mike Torres who I was asking about this, and I had the idea. So Gignac is French. He's been playing in Mexico since 2015. One of the best players in the league since then, one of the top goal scorers every season. I wondered if big fans of Mexican soccer, if we got a star like Gignac, would that be good enough for these Mexican soccer fans? Like Gignac compared to like a lower level Mexican national team star. Like I know it's going to be different if you get like Hector Herrera or someone like that's a big deal, like getting a name like that. But if like the options were like a lower level Mexican national team player or Gignac, like I'd be curious to know what the choice would be there. So maybe I'll do another one of my my super scientific Twitter polls and see what the listeners think about that. But yeah, what would you think? Do you think that would be good enough, Jeremiah, or would it not really?
I think he would be. I don't see how he's that controversial of a player for MLS. I mean, I know he's a little bit older, but he's only 32 or something.
34. He's 34 now.
Okay. So, right. I mean, so he does fit a little bit into that, aging superstar mold thing. But I mean, he's, not far removed from being the starting striker on a World Cup winning club. And he's got a lot of success. And I know I read this article, I think it was on MLSsoccer.com, about how Tigres is convinced that there's some grand conspiracy that he's engaged with MLS to try to get him to America. So maybe there's an opportunity there. But I mean, I think depending upon how the rest of the roster is constructed, I mean, I'd like to see him. He's a very handsome man. We'd be a good start there. Yeah.
Very handsome French man. We'd have a handsome off between him and Giroud. A handsome off of French strikers who are maybe too old to spend as much money as you would have to.
That's probably true too. I mean, Lord knows how much he costs, and how the finances that works out.
Yeah, that's the real question, is if you get him for the right price, of course, go for it. But who knows what that price is going to be. Another way that MLS teams can get players is through the expansion draft. So we have zero details about the expansion draft, like if there's even going to be one this year. But generally the way it works is teams are able to protect 11 players, and then their homegrown players are also automatically protected. And then all the players who are not protected, the expansion team gets to go through the league and choose 5 players from these teams, and essentially just to build up their roster without having to pay a bunch of money. So we found this article by a guy named Tim Jones out of Philadelphia, who he wrote an article about Austin FC's expansion draft, specifically thinking about the Philadelphia Union and which players they would be protecting. So I thought this was a pretty interesting thing, A, for him to do, and then B, for someone like us to read.
Yeah, I was out of all the places in the world to find that. It was pretty interesting. And he breaks down what he's got all. Yeah, everybody he believes they would protect. Everybody believes that they would expose. He's got comments on all of them. It's a really well researched article. I wish that fans of every team would write articles like this to get us excited about
Yeah.
it. And he even talks about in here sort of express preferences of Claudio Reyna and how some of these people would or wouldn't fit into the system. So I would recommend everybody. We'll definitely put this in the show notes. Everybody give it a read. But do you want to jump down to the end and kind of give folks the conclusion of the article? Which I think is really that we're not going to get anybody from Philadelphia in his scheme.
Yeah, he goes through, it's a pretty long article and kind of goes through the reasoning of how expansion drafts work and what Reyna has said. And so if you just want to learn a bit more of kind of expansion draft strategy, again, we would recommend this article. But at the end, he has a guess of what's going to happen. And he mentions a 19-year-old player named Axel Picasso. He moved with his family from Mexico City to Austin while he was a teenager, and then played for Lone Star Soccer Club here in Austin, and then left to play at the Philadelphia Union Academy in 2016. And so this guy, Tim Jones, his prediction is that there's going to be some kind of like backroom deal where Austin FC buys this player, this 17-year-old player, and in exchange for playing ball, they're going to not choose any players off of the Philadelphia Union's roster in the expansion draft, which he claims himself that it's probably a harebrained idea, but it's an interesting thing to think about, and like something weird that definitely happens in MLS sometimes. So it's not that far-fetched of a thing that could happen.
Yeah, it's a very MLS experience. I mean, he's 19-year-old midfielders, Mexican background, and some history here in Austin. Like, that seems like a pretty good addition to the squad. Yeah.
So we'll definitely do like some kind of special show on the expansion draft whenever we have the details about it, because that's going to be a big moment. Like, you don't always get great players out of the expansion draft, but most recently, LAFC got Tyler Miller and Latif Blessing out of the expansion draft. So two guys who started with them whenever they were arguably the best team in MLS history. So we're probably not going to get a bunch of superstars, but if we can get one or two guys who can regularly give something to the team, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and keeping you guys posted. So there's recently been some drama regarding the Supporters Shield. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Jeremiah?
I will be happy to do that. And first of all, the Supporters Shield, like, I did not know a whole lot about it until last year, is the award that goes to the team with the best regular season record every year in MLS, and it's presented by the supporters groups and they travel from one to the other. I ended up being in LA last year when LAFC won it, and they had, I don't remember who won the Shield the year before. I don't remember, but they had
would have been Toronto or Seattle.
Yeah, it's always a good guess. They had representatives from the supporters.
They didn't win the Supporters Shield though. Oh, I don't know. Atlanta or Red Bulls.
Oh, it'd have to be
probably.
Atlanta, right? The year before?
The year before LAFC would have been Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that was the year they I think that's right. Listeners, tell us if we're wrong. We don't know anything.
Yeah, there you go. We don't watch much soccer. But they had the Atlanta people, and they presented it to representatives of the LA supporters groups. It was a really cool tradition. And then there's the spot in the CONCACAF Champions League that goes along with it too. But recently, so the Supporters Shield is run by the Supporters Shield Foundation, which is a 5-member group. It's a subset of the Independent Supporters Council, which is this association of all the supporters groups across the league. And they announced a couple days ago that they were not going to award a Supporters Shield in 2020 just because of COVID and all the things that had gone on. And they met with I would say, extremely strong and negative reactions from both players and coaches there. So I saw that Bedoya from Philadelphia, we're just talking about, decided that, I think he tweeted out that maybe it was just time to move on from the concept overall and do something else. And then one of the coaches too, which coach was it?
It was Greg Vanney from Toronto.
Yeah, he got Toronto, who would be in position to be the recipient of it, right?
Yeah, very strong position to be the recipient of it. So, yeah, and like I think the strongest, like the main reason why they don't want to give it out this year is because not all the teams have played the same amount of games, and that's probably going to be the case at the end of the season with all of the games getting canceled due to positive COVID tests. Also, teams are not playing balanced schedules. Like they're kind of playing in these little round robin sets a few weeks at a time. And so some teams are playing really easy teams over and over, whereas other teams are having to play tougher teams more often. And so I like from a fairness standpoint, I get it, but like it's been a tough year, guys. Like let's just do something that's going to make somebody happy. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Like this whole year is just going to be one big asterisk. And so if we can do something that's going to make someone happy this year, like in another year, I would maybe be a little bit more for doing like the more fair thing. But this year, just give it to someone. Give someone a trophy. Someone deserves a trophy.
Yeah, 2020's been such a mess. Just go for it. So I did read a couple hours ago, and this probably will change by the time this episode comes out, that new information has come to light, which I guess that new information being them getting hammered all over Twitter by everybody, probably. Yeah. I don't know what else they wouldn't have known. And so they're re-examining that decision and the possibility that they may award the Shield this year. So stay tuned for that.
They found out that Bradley Wright Phillips' arms and legs are only held on by the force of the supporters' shield. That's right. And if they don't give it to someone, he'll just fall apart. Yeah, I that's one possibility, but I think the more probable one is what Jeremiah said, that they got angry people on Twitter. So
don't underestimate angry people on Twitter.
They're pretty powerful sometimes. Jeremiah, you got to do something cool over the last week. What was it?
Yeah, so my company bought field seats for the stadium, which is really cool. But one of the things that the club's been doing is giving tours on Sunday mornings to premium season ticket holders, and so we had the chance to go out with a couple folks and actually Weston Applefeller ended up being our tour guide, which is totally a surprise. But he came up, he asked how the downloads were doing on the podcast, told him they were great, most successful show ever. Right. But don't ask me about that. And so we got to spend a lot of time near the field, but yeah, he walked us all around and showed us a lot of cool stuff. On the field side of things, so the irrigation's in, the sand's in, like everything is there. For the turf to be ready. And actually, Anthony Precourt tweeted out on Sunday that the turf is going to be installed starting later this week. And they had like one little, it's not a square, I don't know what you call it, like one rectangular piece of sod.
Yeah,
like
I saw a picture of that someone posted on Twitter, but yeah.
There's one out there.
Did you say what that was for?
Yeah, it was to make sure that the height on the sand was right. So it was like going to be level with the field. And then also they put there was a hole in the middle for a sprinkler head because they had to make sure that the sprinkler head was going to be come sort of at the right level up and down to not like stick up too high, but also be high enough to irrigate the grass. So it's like a test strip.
That was a question so I asked, I think my dad asked me about this whenever I was telling him about interviewing Weston, and he was asking about the sprinkler heads. So are the sprinkler heads going to be in the middle of the field somewhere?
Yeah, they're in a grid, so you can see them all around now. You could probably even where they are before they put the turf on, you can see them on the camera, and we could definitely see them in the layout, like from the stadium. But they're all inside the field, and they come up just enough to water the grass, but I mean not enough to be in the way, so that you're not like tripping over them. So it's really interesting. But you can see the grid laid out.
What else did you learn on your stadium tour?
So we saw the grow lights. If you remember, Weston talked when we interviewed him about the lights that they have. They're like the Premier League lights, the supplemental grow lights they have to put on the field because there are parts of it that won't see sun for like 6 months, I think. And so he said that those will 10 days after turf installation, they'll start putting those on. There's a bunch of like finish elements going on. Like there's some glass work, and there's like green on the north building, and some of the suites and stuff are getting finished out. So it's starting to look like a real stadium. Some of the brackets are going in for the seating, like all on the east side. So that's good. We saw this is the thing that he said he gets asked the most about. There's like a random ladder right in the middle of the field at the exact midpoint, which you can see if you go on the construction cam. And it was the first thing I asked, and he said it's the most common one, and it's just
it's for Andy Loughnane just to go out and stand on every once in a while and just look at the field.
Just look at survey it from above. Yeah. Or like like the band leader, like at a college band, you have a guy like on the ladder doing that. No, it's where all the like the surveyors and stuff like point their lasers at that, which is supposed to be like the exact midpoint of the field, so that so that everything's calibrated right.
You'd think they'd have like a tool or something for that instead of just putting a ladder out there.
Yeah, and I guess it will change he said it would change when the turf was in. So I guess ladders are bad for turf. I don't know, but that was going to go out. And then we got to see, and we'll talk about this, I think, a little bit more, but we got to see where the stadium store was going to be, and kind of the whole redo that they had done over the north building. So stadium store, the second floor of the stadium store, which goes into the beer hall, which I think is probably a smart move, so they can get people, good and liquored up and send them back out through the gift shop.
Except there's a gift shop always.
Of course. But they were saying probably by like the end of November, it'll look a whole lot like a stadium. Like a bunch of the grass will be in, some of the seating will be in, it'll look a lot like what it'll look like on opening day. And then it'll just be a matter of finishing out concessions and concourses and all those kinds of things. So it was really cool to get the inside view.
So they've now completed laying down the grass at the training center. Is that right? Are they finished with it, or are they still doing it?
No, they finished it. Well, they finished the first two big pitches. There's like five total going in, but the two big ones were in. I think
I think answered a question that we had on an early episode of the Capital City Soccer Show, which is what is a mega pitch? And I think the answer is two pitches that are right next to each other, which I learned like the other day. A super pitch is what it's called, a super pitch. And it was a tweet from Austin FC saying the super pitch is done. It's like, oh, that's what it is. It's just two pitches next to each other.
It sounds a lot cooler when it's a super pitch. Oh, one of the other things from the actual stadium is they want to create this impression that, well, not the impression, like that the seats are like right on top of the grass. But they also don't want to maintain a bunch of extra grass. So there'll actually be maybe 6 or 8 yards of artificial turf on the outside of the grass, like toward the stands. So that when you have seats, it goes from like seats to turf to grass. They don't have to maintain like the grass all the way out to where the stadium starts. So
that makes sense.
It'll be a few inches off the edge, and there'll be like a line for the refs to run. But it'll be stadium, artificial turf, then Seashore Paspalum Platinum number whatever it was. Did you notice the turf farm tweeted out the exact name of it after the last show when they retweeted our episode?
I think it was TCP Platinum Paspalum.
There you go. Yeah,
I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. Anyway, so one other article that we found about Austin FC getting involved in the local community was it's a little bit different than what we're used to seeing, but Jordan Enke, who is
it's a VP of stadium operations, I believe.
Yeah, something of stadium operations for Austin FC, attended a meeting at the North Austin Civic Association, which is it's like a neighborhood association, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Jeremiah?
It's an association of neighborhood associations.
Okay.
It's the boss of neighborhood associations. Yeah, it's all the neighborhoods around McCalla, right? Because there's Gracie Woods, there's other ones. The North Austin Civic Association is sort of the convening association of those.
Yeah, so I thought this document was interesting because like a lot of the stuff we read is like a press release or some story being written about it, and there's some like kind of spin to it from someone and they want you to know something about it. But this was just like the meeting minutes from this meeting, right? So we got to see just like, this is what happened at this meeting, which was interesting in and of itself. But what did we learn from this neighborhood association meeting, Jeremiah?
Yeah, well, we learned. I mean, at first we didn't go into this a lot, but we learned that all the things that we've heard about of the things that neighbors are worried about, right? Sound, traffic, all that stuff are concerns. And I always love these minutes because it's like Fred wanted to know about the egress plan for.
Yeah.
So we spared all those, but I mean, I think it's really cool that we're months out and that they followed through on this commitment to like stay engaged in the community and be a good neighbor. And you definitely got that out of the meeting minutes. One of the first things he talked about, or that were in the notes, because we don't know the order that he talked, was about them staying directly in connection with the neighborhood associations in real time with the stadium command center, and things were going on at the stadium, like on match nights and things like that. So that was really positive for them to make that commitment and to make it months out.
Yeah, we also saw they mentioned the like the rideshare drop off, which is the street where Jeremiah and I have met up a few times and put lawn chairs on the street to have beers outside the stadium. But I think, is it called Donnelly? Is that what that one street is called?
Yeah, so it's it's all three. It's got 3D names. It's Donnelly's what you turn on, and then it becomes Delta for a little bit, and then it becomes Denton on the way back out.
Okay,
but it's a loop of 3 streets. But yeah, that's always been the talk about where they would put the rideshare spot. But we've been there. There's a Cat Metro track in the way between that and the stadium. They talked a little bit about how they were going to have to work around that.
Right. Yeah, I remember whenever the Experience Center was open, and they had like supporter night at the Experience Center up at the Austin FC offices. And some of the sales people were kind of showing you the little mini model of the stadium. And one of them told me, like, this is the street where the rideshare drop off is going to be. And we were asking, like, okay, where will you go to? Like, how do you get to the stadium? And you'll have to walk up to Breaker and cross the train tracks at Breaker. And from these meeting minutes, it sounds like that's going to be the case still. Most likely is they're talking about putting fencing up so that stupid soccer fans don't try to jump across the train track to get to a soccer stadium, which probably
they will.
a very good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and yeah, we absolutely will try to do this. And so that's something good to see. And then maybe at some point there will be like a way to cross at a train station. Do you think that might be a possibility?
Yeah, so the station's part of the plan for Project Connect. Weston pointed out that it will be super close. If this passes and when it gets built, it's 100 yards from the side of the stadium where the station will be. So if this passes and it gets built, I mean, it'll be a year or two, but it'll be an amazing access point. It'll be so good.
Would you be able to explain to me and to listeners where exactly that station would be?
So on the east side of the stadium, there's that area because where they're going to have eventually like the amphitheater and all that. Remember, there's the deal about the East Club, which will be open during games. Will be open both to the stadium side and then also to the other side.
Right.
Where the track runs right through there, and the station will be like right there.
Okay, so just right up against that street then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be there.
Amazing if that comes through, which is one more plug. There's still another week and a half or 2 weeks of voting. So Jeremiah and I would like to encourage you to vote in favor of Proposition A, because that will help us get that train stop at the stadium. So little plug there.
And somebody who lives very close to a red line station, I'm very passionate about that issue.
What else we got, Jeremiah?
They just did there was just some other good neighbor stuff. They talked about doing park cleanup, and I know the club is really committed to paying extra attention to the parks and libraries and schools sort of around the stadium. So that was good to hear that they were doing. And they talked a lot about using the neighbors as eyes and ears and being good neighbors from the start. And, for our listeners and us, they intend to influence fan behavior at the start rather than dealing with problems after the fact. And I feel like that was maybe directly connected to some of us.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this a bit earlier, but I think the main takeaway from it is that during the whole political process of getting Austin FC here and like actually getting the city to agree to having a soccer team here, there were a lot of promises made by Austin FC and made to people like these neighborhood associations and to city council members who represent these neighborhoods. And I think they've done a good job of keeping to their promises, and this is just another one that they've done. And so, even though like this is not a thing that affects most of us, it'll affect some of these people who live in these neighborhoods. I think it's another good sign in a string of many recently that points towards Austin FC wanting to be a good neighbor to Austin. And so we'll have to keep them honest on that sometimes, I'm sure, but it's really good signs that we're seeing now.
So speaking of Austin FC, good stuff. They've been killing it on video.
Yeah,
over the last week.
Yeah, so the first one was the what did they call it? It was like grow the drum beat, something like that.
They're good. I don't remember exactly what it was called. It was people we knew at the stadium smacking a drum.
Yeah, and it was real cool. If that doesn't make your tail wag, then I don't know what will. That was pretty cool. And with the, of course, the McConaughey voiceover over the top of it, which makes it even better.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody. It was Brock Williams the other day. What a amazing asset they have to have like McConaughey around, right? To voice over everything they have, and then Adrian Healy is the backup.
Yeah. If you want something like inspiring or fun, then you can do McConaughey, and if you want something kind of classy sounding, you can go with Healy. Yeah, they can't lose.
I can't imagine hearing both of those voices together, though. That would be like too incongruous, because one of them is very Texas and one of them is very England.
Yeah, I remember somebody mentioning the way that Adrian said the word taco on the fan call a few weeks ago. So
taco would be
maybe
exactly...
McConaughey can do some dialect coaching with Adrian before the season starts.
For sure. And then the next thing they did was this Verde Listos series, which I think they're actually going to turn into TV spots and billboards and things like that. And those were just different artists, and I believe there was like the Pitmaster at Valentina's Tex-Mex and Shaky
local
Graves.
Businesses, local artists, local legends, the word that they would use. But yeah, Shaky Graves, Pitmaster Valentina's, the woman who started Fort Lonesome, which is the people who made that original Austin FC flag and kind of stitched that first logo. Shaky Graves was at the Continental Club, and so they really are doubling down on this, like reaching into Austin lore and Austin culture, and really trying to put these roots down into the community and building it from that. And I had like Kevin Morris, who a lot of you will know on Twitter. He's pretty active in Austin FC and MLS Twitter, but he was saying that he didn't think that this kind of marketing stuff would be as effective if we had like a typical American mascot, like we're the Austin Cougars or something. He thinks that this type of marketing would be less effective. And this is something that I've said since they announced the name, is that Austin, like a lot of people don't like the FC naming convention. It's too generic or too boring or whatever, but it allows us to do stuff like this and to grow this culture and to grow the lore of the club, like as we go. It's not just said, okay, you're the Cougars now, this is what we do. It's okay, we're Austin FC, there's a tree thing, but there's a lot of these gaps that we get to fill in along the way, and they get to be filled in by Shaky Graves and by these like Austin legends and these big characters on the Austin landscape, that those things get to be created as we go. And I think that's exciting. There's like something really good about that. And you see it with European soccer teams, like all these legends that have been built around these teams that have nothing to do with the mascot or the name of the team or anything. So I think this is another example of that being true and kind of coming to fruition, is that we get to build this culture and the community gets to build this culture. And it'll be exciting to see how that happens over the years.
Yeah, and these both were really well done. It's just a ongoing testament to how much they've upped their like video and digital game lately. And then to what you just said, like they've done a really good job of plugging into Austin. We talked about this with the Butler brothers, like plugging into Austin in a real, like an authentic way, and not in a stereotypical, like, I mean, it's not like they don't have Willie Nelson and Stevie Ray Vaughan and, you know, that whole scene like as part of it, but it's not just that, right? It's not just like this real superficial
Right.
view
It's not
of
the
Austin culture.
two-dimensional version of that.
Yeah, and they do a good job of seeking out people that are doing real work. So kudos to them for making that happen.
All right. Is there anything else we want to cover, Jeremiah?
No, I think we've covered everything that we need to for this week.
All right, cool. We want to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We also would encourage you to visit capitalcitysoccer.com, where Troy Bryant and Zach Mason bring you the latest in Austin FC news, including player rumors, sponsorship updates, and more.
And I'd like to remind you all, or let you know, that Austin Soccer Foundation is hosting a foot golf tournament on November 8th. It's open to supporters groups of all types, and they mean it. You know, I think they've talked to the Austin FC ones, to the local Premier League teams. They have a really cool looking armadillo trophy that they're handing out to the winner, to the winning team. So you can check out austinsoccerfoundation.org or find them on Twitter or Facebook for more information. We just mentioned a little bit earlier that you can still vote. Early voting in Texas lasts through October 30th. You can check out votetexas.gov for a link to your county clerk's website and early voting locations. And if you're in Austin, Tony Cardoni from Austin Anthem and I worked on austinsoccervotes.org, which is your information on supporting Proposition A and Proposition B, the mobility bonds. That was a fun project to work. We also wrote blog posts about voting, but apparently that's not very interesting to people because like mine had maybe 60 views or something, so it's okay. It's a passion project.
All right. We will be back soon with more Austin FC and MLS news. And I think on the next show, we're going to have an interview with Mateo Clark from La Murga de Austin, who's going to talk about what the group has in store for McCalla Place and the game day environment that they're going to create. So until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.